Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are. Could be middle of the night, I guess. Hello. Hope everybody is well. In my continued uh, obligation and drive to update you, even if there is nothing to update, which is an update in of itself, I am doing it this morning. Hope everybody is well. Hello, StreamYard. Hello, Mr. StreamYard. Hello, Renee. Hello, John, out in Kona. Better weather today probably than SoCal. You're usually always saying it's sunny in SoCal. I'm in SoCal. It's not sunny today. The 1-1, Toe Cramp, Dustin, Brian, Gator Boy, Rondell, Jason Lee. Jason Lee. Jason Lee is a person, isn't it? Isn't that an actress? But those are two different people here. And the reason why I'm moving over to the side, if you recall, I can't see out of my right eye. So to see, I have to look to my left. Hello. I hope I didn't leave anybody out. Hello, Lee, Jim, Matthew, Cheese, McCracker. That's a good one. Gary Medill, Big Orange, Not Your Average. Nice. Like that one. And GTII, Millie Maker, Arnulfa, Vale, the third. I hope that's even close. Anyway, sorry. Hi, Tim. Sorry to blow anybody's name. I apologize. Thank you for all being here. Kind of just wanted to, and anybody else who joins, thank you all. Scott, John, whoever else. This is to everybody. I appreciate you all. Appreciate you all being here. So I'm going to kind of bring you up to date a little bit because there is like some communication. I'll bring you up on the communication before we start. What did one plant say to the other? I'm rooting for you. Let's have a little fern. You can't plant greenery if you haven't botany. And what did the one plant say to the other plant about his son? He just needed a kick in the bud. I will have a whole slew of other jokes at the end, if those were jokes. I don't know what those were. I have no idea what those were. So last time I gave you a live stream update, which is about a week ago. And again, I'm just going to keep on filling in the space just so you know, and you won't be out, you won't be any further in the dark. So last communication I was referencing October. I was referencing discussion that happened October 7th. And I went back and I looked at it, and the response was a question related, I guess, to the delisting and whether shareholders had to reconfirm their shareholder position. And the Receivers Council was pretty clear that you don't. It's only the disputed shares where anybody had to reconfirm, the validity of their shares. But one thing that was in there also, and this is October 7th, because I brought up the issue and some people were confused, and they said that they would address it in the upcoming receivers report. That was October 7th, and the suggestion is there will be an upcoming receivers report. Now, I also sent out a request, I think in the past, or an objection, or however you want to phrase it, and I did it again, I think yesterday, about the receiver being able to trade GTII stock now, because I know it's still trading, and I've asked them, this is one of the things that's kind of, annoying. I wanted them to see if they could stop the trading of GTII. I've mentioned this many times. They come back with some non-responsive response without saying, we can't do it because X, Y, and Z. They don't say that. They dance around like everything else. They dance and don't disclose what the reason is they can't stop the trading. If they can't stop the trading, and they haven't, then what's the risk in disclosing that? The reason. So I'll stop bitching about it. And the fact that it's still trading, like today, somebody pointed out, I guess it was trading below 1 penny. Somebody was dumping like 30,000 shares for $30. And what was the purpose of that? And apparently there's a reason why the receiver can't stop the trading, but they're not willing to disclose that fact, or they can't disclose it, or they don't know, or their counsel doesn't know. And which takes me to another point is, so I ask a lot of questions. Hopefully, I'm hoping that the receiver in their next report, that I hope is brief and doesn't waste our money, will address a lot of these questions in a concise fashion. And you'll see the questions because I'm going to tell you what the questions are because I asked them. But they haven't addressed the issue about not being able to trade stock and why they can't, and let them do that. So that runs into the next point is, so I've asked a lot of questions. They respond, I'd say probably about maybe 5% of whatever I send them, maybe 5%, maybe less. But I get communications from other shareholders and they're responding to other shareholders. That's great because I get the same information. I'm great about that. But the pretense that they can't disclose it because it's non-public information, but they'll disclose it to some shareholders, then not, is complete bullshit. Just so we're clear. Continue to do it because it discloses information, but the pretense that you can't disclose information because you might affect the stock trading practices, but you disclose it to certain people or communicate with certain people because they send me the things you're communicating about. So it makes no sense. But a lot of this stuff doesn't make a lot of sense. Doesn't mean that the receiver's doing a poor job, but again, in my mind, in terms of communication and transparency, the receiver's doing a hideous job. That's my view. Doesn't mean that the substantive work isn't good, but in terms of the communication aspect, it sucks. So on the 7th, Dylan Siciliano indicated that a report is forthcoming. Sounded like it was coming. And also, I think it's at about that time, he also indicated, it was either the 4th or the 7th, that substantive progress was being made on the audit. And I think it was the first time that there's been any indication of real progress in the audit. But again, that was disclosed to somebody else, and why they're communicating with one person and not another, I don't know. It really makes no sense, especially if they're not going to try to stop the trading of the stock. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but I'm just a moron out here. So on the 11th, so I think yesterday I sent another update asking them, and I'm sending these constantly. So I don't read them all, but I read some of them, and see if we can get like these questions answered in the report. But yesterday I sent another one out to the Receivers Council saying, I hope the receiver's not selling his shares because nobody else out here like myself can sell the shares, and it wouldn't be appropriate. It's not the first time I've asked that. I've not received a response yet, but I've questioned that, and I hope he's not. I hope he's not, because that would really be, I think, at best, it's, I think, a bad look, if not way beyond that, but I'll let that go. So on the 11th, again, because I get a response of about 5%. I'm being, trying to give a fair estimate. 5% response rate. So I have to send out a bunch of things to get a response. And so I sent this one out on Saturday, hoping, one, did I get a response? And, I will or I won't. Or number two, that I will be able to have these questions answered in the report that's upcoming. And before I deal with that, I wanted to quickly shift. Oh, and then as far as I know, nothing's new on the AI-versity matter. I think, Forster is still interested, as far as I know, up till the recent time. Forster's still interested. I don't think he's heard from the Receivers Council in quite some time. And again, I don't know how to read that. I don't know what the basis of that is. I don't know what the logic is behind that. I don't. But that's kind of the understanding. And since a deal needs to be done for this company to be saved, I assume it'll happen at some point in time. But so far, it doesn't make a lot of sense why they haven't responded, but they haven't. So that's a side issue. Another side issue is, and this is completely unrelated to this, is on Friday, there was kind of a market dump, and crypto really dumped. And it turned out there was somebody, and it's been estimated, because I've heard time sequence, either 2 hours or 30 minutes prior to the dump. And the dump happened when Trump announced that he raised the level of the dispute with China, at least temporarily. As a result, the market used that to dump. 30 minutes or 2 hours prior to the announcement by the White House, somebody placed a $1 billion short bet on Bitcoin, or split it between Bitcoin and Ethereum, and they generated $192 million profit. They quickly sold, and I think they reinstituted the short today, I believe. Some people thought it was too coincidental, the timing, including myself. Not a big fan of how government treats retail shareholders, how they regulate. Just another example. It clearly seems like there was some kind of leak from the White House. Some people thought it was even like the Baron Trump or whatever. I heard today, and I don't know the accuracy, that it might have been somebody in China who had an exchange and got the information. Somebody leaked the information to them, and they made the bet. But notwithstanding that, that's kind of complete nonsense. And to the extent that there's a disclosure of information that lets somebody, because a lot of people got wiped out, literally. They were on margin or whatever, and they got wiped out. And not necessarily all people of wealth. Could have been people with very small accounts. And also they said that the oracle is what calculates the price. The oracle was not calculating the price correctly. So, for example, let's say you had a liquidation price of $15 and the price was dropping and it incorrectly dropped to $14.90, you would get liquidated even if the price was wrong. And I've asked that question many times because I don't even know. I've raised this issue and I have no idea. But the price that we see even for stocks, how do we even know those are accurate prices? I mean, that's just accepted on face value that the calculations are correct. I have no idea if they're correct. And the fact that on Friday in the crypto markets, the prices apparently were not correct should cause everybody concern across the board. And the fact that somebody was leaked information, whoever leaked the information should be charged and put in prison for leaking inside information. Period. And the perpetrator, if there's jurisdiction over him, also. And none of this bullshit should happen. I mean, this is not allowed. This is not like a fifth world country where this kind of nonsense should be allowed. It's a continuation of the nonsense that's been going on forever, but it's happened to be on Friday, and somebody really took advantage of obviously inside information, like the most blatant. Somebody's not going to risk like $1 billion just on the come. Anyway, so that pissed me off, and it should piss everybody off that was allowed, and pressure should be put on the White House and the DOJ and the SEC to get to the bottom of that so that retail and everybody doesn't get screwed. So that's a side issue. Summary so this is what I sent out on Saturday to Dylan and a bunch of other people. But in hopes of, one, getting a response, or two, getting answers to this in the next report. And I'm just going to read it. It's pretty self-explanatory. Greetings and good afternoon. Again, my recollection is that the monetary claims, which were due by 9/15, would be summarized and disclosed. Where are the summaries and the disclosure? So this is the claims that were made. There were apparently 8 claims that were made. One was Bronx Eye Care, where people said they had deals with GTII, contracts, arrangements that were not upheld. There was a procedure set up so anybody who had a claim could submit a claim by September 15th. Either in court or in the paperwork, I remember, and I think it was Dylan, this is my recollection, indicated that the claims would be summarized and disclosed. And as of this point in time, they have not, as far as I know, I haven't seen them, haven't been summarized and haven't been disclosed. Perhaps in the report, they will be summarized and disclosed. Perhaps in a document to be filed, they will be summarized and disclosed. But I would attest to the fact that that's what it was said, and I haven't seen it. So I can't explain why we haven't seen those claims. I don't think it's nefarious, but I just haven't seen it, like a lot of things that I haven't seen. Also, I have asked, so I'm continuing on with my email. Also, I've asked but not received any substantive response as to why trading can't be temporarily halted without delisting, either through the OTC or court. Please delineate what steps have been taken to attempt to restrict continued trading. So again, I've asked that trading be stopped, at least temporarily. They apparently suggest it can't be, but haven't indicated in what way they've determined that and why it can't be. And I think it's reasonable to inquire about that at this point in time. I don't know why I have not responded. Hopefully, they will address it in the report. Next, also, please provide the status of depositions in general and the document production by Frank B. And if you recall, I attended the Frank Benedetto deposition, and subsequent to the Frank Benedetto deposition, there was a document request. So I'm asking about that. And I'm also asking, are they going to do any other depositions? Justine Reichman, David Reichman, Kathy Griffin, anything like that? I think that's a reasonable question, waiting for a response. Next, any time frame for your next reporting? So I indicated, I think on the 4th or the 7th, they indicated the report is forthcoming. On the 11th, I ask when. Next, any update rate audit completion? I think I indicated in a prior live stream that they indicated most recently, and it's probably a week or so ago, that they were actually making, I don't remember the exact language, but it sounded like, as opposed to just kind of standing still, actual progress was being made. Again, when the order appointing the receiver was done in September of 2024, there's a reference into that in the order about the receiver being on top of the filings, etc. Here we are a year later, more than a year later, and we have no audit and we have no specific idea when the audit is coming. I presume it's coming shortly, but I presume that for quite some time. And it really would be helpful if the counsel or the receiver indicated when it's coming. And if they're not willing to stop or they can't stop the trading, then why not disclose it? If you're not going to do that, if it's unimportant, the trading's unimportant, then why not disclose it, since nobody could trade it and most people can't trade it because it's an expert market, as we know. Next, any update raise status of negotiations with AIV, that's AIversity, or anyone else? A reasonable question. We've gotten no updates. All we see is, I've seen tweets from John Forster where he indicates that there have been no communications. I don't know what's going on. I don't think anybody knows what's going on. I don't know why the receiver's not disclosing that. I don't know why the receiver is not being transparent about what's going on. What's the harm in being transparent, like about everything else? I presume, again, that perhaps in the report, I'm giving them like an outline of what issues to address, that they will address that. And they'll talk about their status of the negotiations with AIV or anyone else. Why Forster is indicating that they're not communicating with them. It's been quite some time at this point in time. I find it very concerning, by the way, and I don't know the reason why. Next, any update with the status of any negotiations to get to return of disputed shares? If you recall, there was a mediation, and there was a list of I don't remember, about 60 names, could be more or less, that amounted to about 180 million shares of disputed shares. There was some negotiations. There's been no indications of any deals. Were there any deals? What are those deals? How does it work? It's what's going on. To add a little levity and to see if they were paying attention, my next one was, any update when the A's ballpark will be finished? So just to see if they're paying attention, in a list of things, I threw in the construction of the A's ballpark, which is being built in Las Vegas, and the counsel for the receiver is in Las Vegas. So as a little bit of humor or attempted humor, I asked him about the A's ballpark that's being built where the Tropicana Hotel used to be built, if you recall that. Next, when is the next court date? reasonable question because there's nothing on the calendar when I looked last. There's nothing scheduled. And I finished it off. The fact that I have to repeatedly ask without a response, parentheses, I believe you suggested that was the receiver's call, not yours, is one of the main reasons shareholders believe material information is being withheld from them. That's my conclusion. Thank you. So that's the end. So I'm asking a bunch of questions. I'm hoping in the report they address they address all these issues. By that last email I read, it sounds like the report is coming shortly. By the reference to progress on the audit, it suggests the audit is coming shortly. But the unfortunate part is that the receivership, in my mind, continues to lack transparency and provide answers to reasonable questions. So I'll continue to ask. I'll continue to wait for the report and anything else, any filings. Obviously, when the time comes, we'll let the court know about what's going on. And I urge any of you out there that feel the same to let the court know if you have any concerns of yourself, but it has to be attached to a hearing. In other words, you're not just going to file something. You might file something when there's a hearing, and then there will be future hearings because there'll be hearings on the claims that I mentioned that they haven't summarized. There'll be hearings on any deals that are made, and so everybody will have a chance to express themselves. Whether the court's going to really consider anything outside of the receiver, I don't know. I'm hoping that others who have involvement will be aggressive when the time comes. So we will see. And as I promised, whether I have nothing to say and I'll just babble for 30 minutes or I have new information, I will keep you apprised. And with that, I'm going to leave you with this. What is a baby chick's favorite type of plant? An eggplant, of course. What plant should you watch out for the most? An ambush. What's the scariest plant? Bamboo. And last but not least, why was the farmer super embarrassed? He wet his plants. Anyway, thank you all for being out there. Thanks for hearing me out there. Thanks for hanging in for those wonderfully funny jokes. And if you have questions after this, post them when this is posted. You could certainly reach out to me. People do reach out. They send me communications. I encourage that. I appreciate it. And when I have additional information, I will let you know. My only promise is that I will keep you apprised and continue to keep you apprised. That may not be substantially different from the last one, but you won't be out of the loop in terms of what I know. So I will leave you with that. Be well, everybody. Take care. Have a great Monday, and see you soon. That's all I can say.